If you want to build more muscle, lift heavier weights. I know I'm not the first person to say this, and you've probably heard it hundreds of times before. Now, of course, there's a lot of nuance that goes with this, especially as you become more advanced. We're going to get into this in detail today, but more importantly, I'm going to tell you something different. When we're talking about lifting heavier to build more muscle, lifting heavy has nothing to do with the weight itself. Rather, the key point to that whole statement is actually training with low repetitions. When you lift heavy relative to your own strength levels, you can only perform a few repetitions. And in the bodybuilding community, when we're talking low rep heavyweight sets, depending on the movement, that's generally under 10 repetitions. And more than likely, we're probably actually focusing on sets of, let's say, 5 to 8 repetitions. But let's talk about exactly why this rep range is one of the best rep ranges to build muscle. High effort, low rep sets have many advantages over low weight, higher rep sets. First, we have motor unit recruitment. In simple terms, every body part is made up of slow twitch muscle fibers, fast twitch muscle fibers, and muscle fibers that are actually a combination of both. Slow twitch muscle fibers, they're responsible for lower effort activity or lighter weight training sets. Think about going for a long jog or let's say a bike ride. The muscles are contracting every single step or every single pedal, but they're not fatiguing very fast. You can do this for a long period of time as the effort level required is not very high. That's the exact job for a slow twitch muscle fiber. Now, similar with weight training, if you pick a very light weight, something you could do 50 repetitions with, the majority of those reps, especially the earlier ones, are going to recruit mostly slow twitch muscle fibers. In fact, let's say the first 20 to 30 repetitions that you do, they're probably not going to be very stressful on the muscles at all. And this is exactly when slow twitch muscle fibers are being recruited. Now, as we approach failure, you start fatiguing all those slow twitch fibers. And as a result, the larger fast twitch fibers will be called to assist. And the only real way in a lightweight, high repetition set to recruit those fast twitch muscle fibers is to take that set near or to failure. But this is actually an extremely inefficient way to recruit those muscle fibers. And I'm going to talk a bit more about why in just a minute. Now, when it comes to bodybuilding, the only part of this that you really need to understand is that those slow twitch muscle fibers, they're not really the best ones to focus on if your goal is building muscle, especially not when we compare them to the big fast twitch muscle fibers. Now, those fast ones, that's really what we're after if your goal is an increase in strength and muscle size, as they have a greater capacity for muscle growth in general. Those fast twitch fibers, they're recruited with those higher effort and higher load sets. If you go to bench press your 5 rep max, your body's now going to be forced to recruit both those slow and those fast twitch muscle fibers for maximum muscular development. It's such a heavy load that your body's not going to wait until you approach failure to recruit those fibers. It's actually going to recruit those fast and slow twitch muscle fibers as soon as the first rep you perform. This will happen all the way up to the last rep, and as we approach failure, that's a sign that we've recruited all those muscle fibers and they're no longer able to contract. You might be asking, why is this a good thing? When we train heavy weight with low reps, we can now approach failure or train directly to failure much more efficiently. Lower rep sets leave far less room for form breakdown. You're generally likely to stop that set from the target muscle being fatigued rather than any other assisting muscle fatiguing. Think about squatting. If you were to take a 30 rep set to failure, by 20 reps, your quads might not even be tired, but your lower back, your hips, and other assisting muscles, they might be fatiguing. Form and technique might now break down, not to mention, you're basically doing cardio at this point. As a result, your lungs might give out way before your quads do. You might have to stop the set due to form breakdown, but your quads might not have ever approached failure. Now instead, let's put your 5 rep max on the bar and perform 5 repetitions on the squat. In this set, the only thing that's failing is in fact your quads. Another reason that low rep sets are key, especially in those compound lifts. The most effective reps for building muscle are generally the last 5 reps before failure. That means regardless if we do a set of 5 or a set of 25, the last 5 before failure, those are the growth reps. If we do a set of 5 with a load that we can only handle for 5 repetitions, every single rep we perform in that set is an effective rep. If you do a 25 rep set, the first 20 are basically warm-ups until you get to the last 5. Now, of course, this doesn't mean you should only do sets of 5 in the gym, and there's many advantages to also incorporating some higher rep sets. I do so all the time, but you need to understand that there's a time and place to use them. And if you're going to perform lower rep sets, you need to understand exactly why you're performing them. Now, don't get caught up in the number 5, as the science is not necessarily concrete on this. I'd say realistically, when it comes to effective reps, it's probably more of a range rather than a set number. That might be closer to 4 to 8 repetitions, with 5 being the sweet spot. But the bottom line is, if you're trying to get the same hypertrophy benefits out of sets of 20 to 25 as you are with sets of 4 to 6, you're gonna need to make sure all those high rep sets are taken to failure. And in reality, it's very hard to take the target muscle to or near failure in high repetition sets. Something like lateral raises or preacher curls, that might not be an issue. But on a 30 rep barbell row, it's probably gonna be a case of your lower back fatiguing from staying in that position too long, rather than the lats and the upper back fatiguing. So if your goal is maximum muscle growth, don't sleep on those lower rep sets, but make sure you understand why you're doing them. You're not chasing heavy weights in the gym. If you simply slap more weight on the bar, as a result, you might be training with poor form or a shorter range of motion. And if that's the case, you're actually getting less muscle building effects from that set. But if you lower the rep range, improve your technique, and put the correct load on the bar so that you fail the set under 10 repetitions, every single set you perform is gonna be a solid set for muscle building. 90% of my training has always been done with lower rep sets, with the other 10% of sets being as high as 15 to 20. But keep this in mind, there are advantages to higher rep sets. There's a time and place to incorporate them, and you should not focus on only low rep sets. But if your goal is to build muscle, they probably should be a priority in your training. In another video, I'll discuss the exact reasons and time and place for higher rep sets. But if you're looking to build more muscle, apply these tips today. And if you want the exact programs that I recommend to build more muscle using proven old school bodybuilding methods, all my old school mass gain programs are down below. And as always, if you want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.